Hello and welcome to the Essex Boys Murder Case part 23. Before watching this video, I recommend watching part 4 onwards on YouTube, as these videos are all about the key individuals and the murder victims movements on the day of the 6th of December 1995. A quick mention, as always, to the Facebook page called The Real Essex Boys Murder Club. If you're interested, please feel free to join, as there's some great people on there with a lot of knowledge on this subject. There's new posts going on daily, new people joining daily, and I think we're almost up to the 19,000 member mark, which makes us the biggest and best Essex Boys group out there. So the next key individuals we're going to follow next are Pat Tate, Tony Tucker, Craig Rolfe and Mick Steele. Now don't forget, I'm going on Darren Nichols' second statement in this video, and going on the last definite sighting of Pat Tate, Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe, which was by Andrew Reynolds at around 6:05 PM. Now Andrew Reynolds was an employee of Basildon Tyres, and he knew Craig Rolfe from their school life. Tucker, Tate and Rolfe also took their cars to his workplace to be fixed, and he had spoken to them about a car Pat Tate wanted fixing, and it's there in the phone log evidence, so he would know who they were. If you remember from the last video, Darren Nichols and Jack Wilms had been parked up in the Halfway House pub car park here in the Volkswagen Passat, and Mick Steele was in his Toyota Hilux. As soon as Tucker, Tate and Rolfe turned up in the Range Rover at roughly 6:15 to 6:20 PM, Jack Wilms tells Darren Nichols to set off, giving him directions towards Rettendon, and they would have used the front entrance to this car park, and they would have turned left here where the cursor is. Now Darren Nichols states, "We left the pub car park and went along a slip road and joined the A127 towards Rettendon. Joined the A130 up towards the Rettendon Turnpike and then up towards White House Farm." Now it's roughly a 20-minute drive, so 6:40 to 6:45 PM Dan Nichols would have arrived there, and according to him drops off Jack Wilms. Okay, so let's follow the next set of key individuals. So Mick Steele sets off in his Toyota Hilux first, and he turns left out of the pub entrance, and he goes along the same road as Darren Nichols and Jack Wilms have just set off along a few minutes earlier. And Craig Rolfe is following Mick Steele in the Range Rover, and they're more or less going to be going along the same route. I'll just show you when I get to the roundabout here. Here we go, yeah. They're going to be going along the same route. They're going to be going straight through this roundabout, and then they're going to be joining the A127 just down there, but they're not going towards the A130 where Darren Nichols and Jack Wilms are heading. Mick Steele is taking them towards the Hungry Horse pub in Rayleigh, which you go past the turning for the A130, and then it's a small journey to get to that pub car park, which I will show you now. Tell you what I'll do, before I take you to the Hungry Horse pub car park, I'll quickly show you the route Mick Steele, Craig Rolfe, Tony Tucker and Pat Tate would have been taking. The red marker being the Halfway House pub, and they would have gone along this route here, along here, and it's a relatively short journey, but they would have just headed down here where the grey marker is, and that is where the Hungry Horse pub is in Rayleigh. Just this bit here, Darren Nichols and Jack Wilms would have gone up the A130 up here, headed up towards the Rettendon Turnpike up here, and gone up this route here towards White House Farm. So the two cars set off in convoy at around 6:20, say 6:25 p.m. And they would have arrived at the Hungry Horse pub car park at around 6:30 to 35 maybe, up to 6:40 p.m. So the two vehicles would have travelled along this road here called Down Hall Road, and would have stopped here at the Hungry Horse pub car park, and they may have used this entrance here. Now, as you can see now, it's called the Traveller's Joy, but back then it was called the Hungry Horse pub. So I'm going to use the Hungry Horse pub in my videos, as that's what it was called back then. So they would have gone along the A127 and then gone along the A129 and arrived at this pub. Both vehicles go into the car park, and from here Mick Steele gets out of his Toyota Hilux and gets into the back of the Range Rover, to which they will be going to the alleged landing strip of an intended drugs drop. Now, like I said earlier, I'm going on Darren Nichols' second statement as the last alleged sighting of Tucker Tate and Rolfe, which was at 6:05 p.m. by Andrew Reynolds, who knew them and actually saw them in the Range Rover. Now, just before we go any further, as I've been going through the routes they would or may have taken, and me, personally, I think they did a trial run sometime leading up to the murders if the hit went down this way. I mean, not even Dan Nichols can mention that, because he would be admitting he had prior knowledge to what was going to happen with the murders of Tucker Tate and Rolfe. He conveniently states that he only knew what had happened when Mick Steele and Jack Wilms got into the Passat after the murders. So if it did go down this way, then to me it was well planned. I mean, I've done a lot of research into this case. I've gone over the routes, the time scales, give or take 5 or 10 minutes, the wintry conditions, rush hour traffic, even the certain stops like pulling up at and Mick Steele telling Dan Nichols to get into the Passat with Jack Wilms, trying to cover the registration plates with fake ones, Mick Steele going ahead to make sure Tucker Tate and Rolfe thought he was on his own, Mick Steele knowing Jack Wilms and Dan Nichols had enough time to meet him at the Halfway House pub car park. As soon as the Range Rover turns up and pulls up to Mick Steele has a chat with them to waste a little bit of time, so Jack Wilms and Dan Nichols can set off ahead to White House Farm, giving him enough time. Mick Steele tells Craig Rolfe to follow him in his Toyota Hilux as they are heading to another pub car park, which gives extra time for Dan Nichols and Jack Wilms to get into place for the hit. It's like with the phone log evidence that morning. I just can't see them calls to be a spur of the moment, non-planned meeting to take place that day about showing Tucker Tate and Rolfe a landing site for a light aircraft to drop cocaine off. To me, if it did happen this way, then it took planning and a lot of thought went into it. If Dan Nichols says this is how it happened, then they would have done a dummy run. Checked how long it took to get to the places they wanted to be. Like Thorndon Gate being the chosen place where Mick Steele pulled up. He let Darren Nichols out so he could get into Jack Williams' car, drive down that lane, so they could stick the false plates on the Passat. They've used the back roads to the Halfway House pub. And that's another thing. Did Mick Steele choose the Halfway House pub to meet Tucker Tate and Rolf? Why did he choose that particular pub? Why use it at all? I mean, think about it. They could have met at the Hungry Horse pub instead. It's closer to Rettendon and White House Farm. You've seen the Google Maps I've put up in previous videos from Mark's T along the A12 down to the Halfway House pub. And there's got to be a reason why he or they chose and used the Halfway House pub as a meeting place. Now, did Mick Steele use it as a delaying tactic so there was plenty of time for Darren Nichols to drive Jack Williams to White House Farm and he could get into position down that farm track? Mick Steele tells Tucker Tate and Rolf to follow him to another pub, and from there he'll be getting in the Range Rover, and that gives Darren Nichols and Jack Williams even more time. Did anyone else meet at the Halfway House pub car park with Mick Steele, Jack Williams and Darren Nichols? Well, they can't or daren't say. Would there not have been enough time if they all met at the Hungry Horse pub car park for Darren Nichols and Jack Williams to get to White House Farm? It's only a small journey. I mean, having looked at the journey from the Range Rover to make from Pat Tate's bungalow to go towards White House Farm in the Rettendon area, Pat Tate's actually going out of his way up towards the Halfway House pub. It's going out of the way. And was that pub used on purpose as a delaying tactic so Jack Williams and Darren Nichols can be in place? I mean, I really do find it strange that the first meeting place was the Halfway House pub. It's just, it is, to me, it is like Mick Steele being clever and using it as a delaying tactic for whoever to get into place. So to me, if the hit went down like this, then that pub was definitely chosen as a first meeting place, and it was chosen by Mick Steele, Jack Williams and Darren Nichols and anyone else who might have been in on it. Definitely not chosen by Pat Tate, Tony Tucker or Craig Rolfe. They're just going out of the way to that pub. Like I say, the Hungry Horse pub is closer, and it's closer to White House Farm. I just want to mention as well, I don't want to go into too much detail today, as I want to concentrate on this journey, but the reason I've mentioned other persons who may have been waiting at this meeting place at the Halfway House pub car park that evening is because there's facts and statements to this case to suggest there were 3 people Darren Nichols drove that night, not 2. But it will be in another Day of the Murders video. So I'll tell you what we'll do now. I'll quickly go through the journeys to that pub using the Google map, just to give you a better understanding of what I mean. So I'll quickly show you the route that Mick Steele and the Essex Boys would have been taken, the red marker being the Halfway House pub, and along the A127 with Basildon down here. Now, Pat Tate's bungalow would have been down here somewhere, and as you go along The Hungry Horse pub, if you can see this grey marker here, is in Rayleigh, and that is where they're heading. Now, Jack Williams and Darren Nichols have gone along the A127, but they've stopped here and gone up the A130 up here, headed towards the Retterton Turnpike up here, gone straight through it, headed up this road here, up to White House Farm. So, I mean, to me, if you look at it, Mick Steele being clever, using another pub, is it a delaying tactic? So Darren Nichols and Jack Williams can get into position. Certainly looks like it from the Google Maps here. I mean, if this was pre-planned, I mean, Mick Steele, Jack Williams and Darren Nichols have done their own work. I mean, they've gone along the A12 to get down towards the Halfway House pub. It's around about an hour's journey. I mean, they've come off a junction early and they've gone along the country roads. So they have a good sense of the area. I mean, most of us, we stick to the main roads. If we're unsure of an area that we're not familiar with, we all do it. We don't go looking down country roads. So to me, they had a sense of knowing where they were going. I think they've been and done a dummy run a week or so earlier and done final checks the last few days before the murders. Look, they also used the lay-by road to get into the side entrance of the Halfway House pub instead of going all the way around to go to the front entrance. Now, most of us would use the, you'd stay on the extra junction on the motorway and then gone along and used the pub's front entrance. I mean, just look here. Basildon here. Pat Tate lives here in his bungalow, and instead of going up here to the Hungry Horse pub or all meeting at the White House Farm track, for some reason Mick Steele's asked them to meet over here. It's pulling them out of the way and it's taking them over here to the Halfway House pub. I mean, literally, it's like they're going out of the way to get to this meeting point instead of heading right towards the Hungry Horse pub, which is closer to Rettendon, where Mick Steele could have met them. Then, I mean, yeah, Mick Steele, they could have all met at the Hungry Horse pub. Then he could have got out of his Hilux, and then he could have got in the Range Rover, and they could have set off from there. Why has he picked that particular pub? I mean, wasn't there enough time for Darren Nichols and Jack Williams to get to White House Farm if they would have chosen the Hungry Horse pub to set off from? I mean, I just think this is Mick Steele being clever. He thinks, I'll use the Halfway House pub first as a meeting place, as it pulls Tucker and Rolfe away from where I've chosen the murder to take place. And when they turn up, Jack Williams and Darren Nichols or anyone else who may be with them that night, the hit is on, I'll keep them chatting in the car park, which gives the others a head start along the A127. And Craig Rolfe will be following me, so I'll drive at a lower speed than Darren Nichols, who's ahead of me. And even if I do pass the Passat, I'll just slow down even more, so it gives more time to get to the meeting place. I'm delaying them more anyway, as I'm going past the turning for Rettendon, and I'm using another pub car park to get into the Range Rover. And this gives Darren Nichols plenty of time. And, hey, Mick Steele knows his vehicle won't be seen in the area of Rettendon. He's leaving it at a pub car park. So to me, if the hit went down this way, Mick Steele and the other two have deliberately used the Halfway House pub as a delaying tactic so they have time to get to White House Farm, and Mick Steele could stall them by going to another pub car park. Another thing for you to think about with this scenario: why didn't Mick Steele get out of his Toyota Hilux and get into the Range Rover at the Halfway House pub car park? Do you know what I mean? They could have got into the Range Rover at the Halfway House pub car park. Now, there may not have been enough time for Jack Wilms and Darren Nichols to get into the down that farm track. So to me, he had to delay Tony Tucker, Pat Tate and Craig Rolfe by choosing another pub to pull up at and then get into their Range Rover. Yeah, I mean, just my personal opinion, I think if it went down this way, then Mick Steele, Jack Wilms and Darren Nichols, they've done dummy runs, and they've all these places what they've picked obvious for delaying tactics, so everyone can get in position. I mean, there's absolutely no reason why Mick Steele could not have got in the Range Rover at the Halfway House pub. He's done that for a reason. He took a Tate and Rolfe on a convoy, and he's going past the turning for the A130, and he's going to another car park, and that is a delaying tactic. Absolutely. But yeah, I don't know about you guys and dolls, but I just really do think if you're going on Darren Nichols' second statement, this was not a spur-of-the-moment decision by Mick Steele that day, as Darren Nichols says it was, to arrange all this. Even if Darren Nichols knew about what was going to happen or not that night. Now, let's not forget Darren Nichols, a self-confessed liar. He even admits to this. But this was a pre-planned, using all the meeting points we've covered according to Darren Nichols' statement. I'm going to keep an open mind as I make these Day of the Murders videos, so let's not forget the amount of unrecorded custody time between the police and Darren Nichols that took place. Darren Nichols giving snippets of information, and the police going out, checking times, places, making sure there's plenty of time for all this to happen and to fit into Darren Nichols' many statements, 26 I think it was. I mean, when you go through Darren Nichols' court transcripts of him being cross-examined, I mean, when someone tells a lie, you have to make another lie up to cover the first lie. When the gangster and armed robber Billy Jasper gave his first statement, he gave a very detailed account of events, and on the witness stand the judge said he gave a credible account of what he said happened that night when he was later cross-examined. Right, back to the journey, and we'll move on to the last part today. So Mick Steele, Tony Tucker, Pat Tate and Craig Rolfe are all at the Hungry Horse pub car park in Rayleigh, where Mick Steele is going to get into the back of the Range Rover. The time is roughly 6:35 to 6:40 p.m. And as you can see, the last leg of this journey to White House Farm is roughly, I think it says 9 minutes. Let's say 9 to 12 minutes. They don't need to go and travel back along the A127, then along the A130 up towards the Repton Turnpike. There's no reason for them to do this at all. It would have been the long way around to get to White House Farm, and this route they would have taken here along the A1245. The red marker at the bottom being the Hungry Horse pub, and the grey marker at the top is White House Farm. Now if you just look to the left here, this is where the Rettendon Turnpike is. So basically, there's no need for them to go along this route down here, go across here, go up the A130, Rettendon Turnpike, up to the White House Farm. They've no need to do that at all. This is a quick and easier journey just by going up here and reaching their destination. Right, now, within this last part of the journey, this is where the phone call from Sarah Saunders to Pat Tate would have happened along this journey. This is the last time Sarah Saunders had communication with Pat Tate, the father of her child, according to her statement and the phone log evidence. Sarah Saunders used a landline to phone Pat Tate on his mobile at 6:46 p.m. So, as he states, she did not own a mobile phone at the time and used her landline at Great Gregory to phone Pat Tate. And she said in her statement she spoke to him and he seemed calm and fine and certainly not in a mood like he was earlier in the day when they met at her mum's address in Kingswood, Basildon. And according to her, Pat Tate said, "I can't talk right now, I'm with someone. We'll speak tomorrow." When the police questioned Sarah Saunders on this, she told them that if Pat had have been with Mick Steele, he would have said, "I can't talk right now, I'm with Mickey." Now, the question is, would he? The reason I say this, guys and dolls, is because the last time Sarah Saunders and Pat Tate spoke of Mick Steele, Pat was saying that Mick Steele would be going up north and you won't be seeing him again. Sarah Saunders took that as Pat Tate was going to kill or have Mick Steele killed. So she secretly met with Mick Steele and warned him what Pat was saying. Mick Steele's partner, Jackie Street, and Sarah Saunders were good friends. And Mick Steele had a fondness for Sarah Saunders, and from the statements, cared for her and didn't like the way Pat Tate was treating her. I don't think there was any more in the story of Mick Steele and Sarah Saunders. We know it's been put in the films and the books portraying that they were having an affair. Not for me. It's just not there. I think Darren Nichols was being interviewed by the police, and they asked Darren Nichols about a meeting taking place between Sarah Saunders and Mick Steele. And Darren Nichols said that they had met to discuss what Pat had said, and Sarah Saunders tried to warn Mick Steele, and the police asked him what he thought of Sarah Saunders and Mick Steele, and Darren Nichols said that he thought they were having an affair. That's where it comes from. Darren Nichols being interviewed by the police. Having read the statements of Darren Nichols, he even wasn't sure about what he was saying about the two. Right, so I'll leave it there for today. Just to remind you again, I've gone on Darren Nichols' second statement to make this video. So Darren Nichols dropped Jack Wilms off at approximately 6:40 to 6:45 p.m. and Craig Rolfe is driving Pat Tate, Tony Tucker and Mick Steele. The stolen Fiat Uno Turbo is outside the Peacock's Gym in London, yet to be picked up by Billy Jasper. And as always, thank you to the YouTube subscribers. It's much appreciated that you subscribe to my channel. Hopefully I shall be making another video soon. Don't forget, you can join the Real Essex Boys Facebook group. Like I say, it has almost 19,000 members now, and it's growing and getting bigger every day. God, member requests go on daily. There's posts going on daily. All we ask is please respect other members' opinions on the group, as we all have our theories on what we think happened that night. Thank you to the admins, Amy, Danny, Andrew, Tina, and David, and who all do a fantastic job of keeping the group ticking over. And until next time, take care.